Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, the Nevada State Treasurer joins us, Conine, here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome to Story County, where history meets innovation, and a pioneering spirit continues to shape our future. At the heart of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, we power the future with global leaders in technology and manufacturing, driving progress that reaches far beyond our county lines. From advanced manufacturing to tech innovation, our industries are creating thousands of quality careers, fueling a vibrant economy that benefits every Nevadan. But it's more than just growth. Our community is our foundation, supporting families, empowering local initiatives, and creating a place where everyone belongs. Be part of a legacy built on bold ideas and boundless possibilities. Join us in building a brighter future right here in Story County. Story County, helping build Nevada's future.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're always pleased to welcome back to the program Conine. He is the Nevada State Treasurer. Pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having us back.
And you got money.
We do.
You've increased the bonding capacity of the state dramatically, it seems.
Yeah, so we have been working on this for a long time. But one of the responsibilities of our office, for any of your listeners who don't know, I know you do, is we have to come up with the bond capacity and affordability number, which is basically a calculation which says, here's how much money we can afford to borrow, right? So it's both looking at what we've already borrowed, what we're going to be able to refinance perhaps and pay a lower interest rate on, the interest rate that we're going to pay, which of course is lower than it's ever been relative to the rest of the market because of the 3 credit rating increases we've gotten since I've been treasurer. And we take all those things together and we say, here's how much money we can bond for. But a couple of years ago, we started doing one additional thing, which is how much money should we bond for, right? It's not just a question of what can we bond for, what can we do constitutionally, what can we do under the math. It's a question of what projects and priorities are out there.
And responsibility, I would say.
That's right.
And
so we look at the projects that are out there, the potential things that we can bond for, and we look at the needs of the state. And so when we explore how can the state lean into housing, how can the state lean into mental health, how can the state lean into public health, right? Those are large expenses, capital expenses, the kinds of things that you want to pay for with bonding. Now, common misconception, right, is that bonding creates new money. It doesn't. We like to think about bonding as a time machine. You're basically bringing money from the future into the present, and that only makes sense. And there's cost to it, right? So that only makes sense when the need in the present is so significant that you can justify doing it.
All right, so for example, what would be the top 3 things that you look at this point and say, these are things that we should be bonding for that perhaps have not been discussed so far?
So one of the things that we're doing is we're trying to put an additional $150 million into the Nevada State Infrastructure Bank. Now, the first time that was funded was $75 million. That was a general obligation bond issuance. And we issued for the first time a social bond, which was a bond that is restricted to its use. And that use in that case was for housing and for educational purposes, right? Out of that piece of bonding. We were able to spend $15 million of the state's money and bring in more than $100 million on the largest charter school construction fund in the history of the state. We were also able to use the dollars that came in on the housing front to do projects both in the north of the state and the south of the state, Carville Park up here in Reno, as well as what will be the largest affordable housing construction in the history of the state, about 1,300 units of attainable housing in southern Nevada, taking over an old golf course. Now, in both of those cases, we're using a tiny little bit of state money to leverage against tens of millions of dollars, what will end up being more than hundreds of millions of dollars of outside pension capital. So when we look at bonding, we're saying, okay, we're going to take on this obligation for the state, right? The state is going to have to pay this money back, and we're going to have to pay interest on it. Not a lot of interest because of our other work, but we're going to have to pay interest on it. So how do we make sure that we're leveraging those dollars as effectively as possible and really dealing with crises that we have right now? Because while it would be totally fine to have those dollars that the State Infrastructure Bank will borrow, probably over 5 years, over those next 5 years, we need housing now. People need places to live now. That's not a problem we can stand to wait half a decade to solve.
All right, but there are issues connected to that. The cost of everything, but probably more importantly than anything, I would think our inability to get lands bills passed. How does that play into your thought process?
So housing is complex, right? And I think,
to say the least.
Yeah, but I think there's a desire for people in my line of work to point at one thing and say, like, that's the problem. If we solve for that, we'll be okay. But we don't do that just in housing. We do that in education. We do that in healthcare. We do that all over the place, right? It is easy to be simplistic. It's good to have a single enemy. We need more land available for housing. But there are thousands of acres of infill land where housing projects could go, both in the north and in the south. There are parcels that we could be using right now to do housing, and we know that because we found them. One of the parcels that we'll be announcing relatively soon for the Infrastructure Bank in northern Nevada was owned by a local entity that just had it for a purpose. That purpose was no longer applicable, but it was on their balance sheet, right? So there's a lot of work that can be done with the land we have. But I always, Sam, look at it from sort of our position as the state's chief investment officer. We're the money folks, right? And so my job is to make sure that we have the resources available so if there is a parcel of land anywhere, we can develop it out. Simply turning over all of the federal lands back to the state of Nevada for use of housing, that will help in some cases. But you can't build attainable housing 60 miles away from the city center, right? You don't have transportation, you don't have access to services. All of a sudden that housing, even if the land is free, isn't affordable.
Right. Well, also the cost of maintaining federal lands. If the government were to give us back all of the land, we couldn't afford to maintain it.
We couldn't afford to maintain it by a factorial, right?
Yes.
It would break the state.
Yes.
And everybody knows that, right? But I think it's relatively easy for folks to say, hey, look, if the federal government sorts out the land thing, we'll be fine from a housing perspective. We know that's not the case. We know we need to make sure that we have the money to develop it. We need to make sure that we have the developers to develop it. We need to make sure that the labor pool to do those construction projects is robust and continues to grow and be
Okay,
increased.
so answer those questions right there, because it seems like the answer to almost all of them is no.
Well, okay. So the first one was money, right? And the way for us to bring money in is to lever dollars.
Right.
When we started the State Infrastructure Bank, we did it with a bit of a field of dreams mentality, right? We had a thesis that there was money sitting on the sideline in pension funds, primarily Taft-Hartley union pension funds, that was looking for ways to invest in America, specifically investing in jobs that would then create more pension dollars, right? This sort of virtuous circle where the pension is paying for projects that are paying members who are paying into the pension, right? Kind of like a nice little circle of life. We thought that was the case. We developed the Infrastructure Bank. We went out and made a partnership with the AFL-CIO's Housing Investment Trust, which is a mutual fund that's done billions of dollars worth of housing projects. And it was the case. We're able to lever every state dollar 10 to 1, right? So start there. Money side, we can be creative. We can find the money side. On the developer side, we both worked with, and we are working with, developers who are currently in the state, and we are attracting developers in from out of state. Because remember, money is fungible. So if you're a developer and you want to be in the affordable housing space, you're looking for the state that is the easiest to work with, where there is access to capital. And so we can solve both of those things by doing good government.
Okay, but the other sides of that, the cost of the construction materials, the workers, etc., those seem to be rather limiting factors at this point.
Well, we know that the best way to make sure that we have a pool of workers available is to make sure that the pipeline of projects is consistent. So working with our friends in the building trades, we know that if we have a project followed by a project, followed by a project, followed by a project, we can create apprentices, and those apprentices can become journeymen, and those journeymen can go on and continue doing this work. If the work is consistent, the workers stay. If the work isn't consistent, the workers leave.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Because we saw that in 2008 when in northern Nevada, for example, a large Hispanic population of construction workers just left. There was no work. They were gone. They were not going to be sitting around collecting unemployment. They were gone.
Right. People want to work, right? They want to create lives for their families that can build the sort of generational wealth that we're always talking about here. And the way to do that is by making sure we have a pipeline of project, and the way to do that is by making sure that we have the financing for it, right? All of those things feed into each other.
But you also have to, hang on. You also have to have a place for those people to live, which is
That's
the other
right.
part of this.
That's right. But the creating a place for those people to live, you can't have a chicken and egg conversation. You need both. Right. We need to create housing right now, and we need to create a way for us to have more housing in the future. We look at housing as the most existential crisis facing the state, right? As my friend Christine Hess from the Housing Division says, and I don't want to steal her line because it's a great one, houses are where jobs go to sleep at night, right? If we want effective economic, see, it's good, right?
Yes.
You got to make sure
It's
credit.
a very good line.
If you want to make sure you have effective economic development, you need effective housing. If you want to make sure that you have a good healthcare system, you need places for those doctors to go. If you want to make education better, teachers need to be able to own a place to live, right? All those things matter. And not for nothing, but if you're an 11-year-old and you don't know where you're going to sleep the next week, it's pretty hard to do well in school.
All right. So, but come back to the beginning. And so are you able to put all those pieces together?
We have.
Okay.
Now we just have to scale it.
Okay, but now the other part of that is you said infill, which totally makes sense. Dina Titus would be slapping you on the back right now saying, good job. But you got to go vertical, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and vertical construction in a lot of ways is more effective anyway. Certainly in
Right.
southern Nevada, the amount of water per usage, right, goes way, way down when you build up. And frankly, that's okay, right? You can build vertical. You also mentioned the cost of what these things cost and the cost of building materials, right? Now, we've seen most of the supply chain disruption sort of post-pandemic. That's evened out, right? Lumber is no longer doing this. It's kind of gotten to a place that is understandable. But we certainly have concerns that if the tariffs that the president is talking about go into place, that you're going to end up, because let's be very clear, tariffs are taxes,
Correct.
right? And those taxes are going to be paid by the user of the thing. If you want to make housing more expensive, the way to do it is not to tax the things that go into housing. I know that's a relatively complex economic concept for some folks, but I think we just got to be very, very clear. The ball moves farther away from success when we are taxing the inputs that go into building housing.
All right, but not to get into too much of the political realm in this particular area, but there are negotiating ploys here at play, and you're seeing leaders of countries responding to these negotiating ploys in a rather dramatic fashion in the first week of the new presidency.
For sure, but I would expect that our ability to negotiate with the major inputs of housing in Nevada, which is like, say, China, is probably going to be a little bit less than our ability to bend the arm of the president of Colombia. But with that said,
Well,
we hope-
okay,
we hope-
all right. So hang on. Let's have that discussion then.
Sure.
So, it seems to me that the media covers the negative sides of the relationship between the United States and China, but doesn't cover, and Taiwan, but doesn't cover the reality, which is the amount of trade that goes backward and forward between Taiwan and China, between the United States and China, and in the opposite direction as well. And that China is not doing so well financially. So there are issues that are beyond the, oh my goodness, we're at the brink of war.
For sure. The level of complexity in global commerce is off the charts, right?
Yes.
And the way that different things interact with each other. Here's the thing I know. If you make the cost of an input more expensive, the cost of the output will be more expensive. If the cost of the materials
Well,
go
unless
into a house,
unless the manufacturer wants to absorb some of that.
yeah, I would very much love to meet a manufacturer who's going to absorb some of that.
It depends on who they are,
Oh, for sure, and
depends on
some,
how well business is going. I mean,
and some will, right? But the
you know,
manufacturer,
they're called loss leaders.
right? Yeah, so they'll.
They don't last forever, but
Yeah, I don't. I mean,
I'm just saying that,
Look,
in
I
the
don't-
economics of things,
for sure. But
you
I
know.
think when we're doing long-term economic
Right.
planning, we should do it differently than the concept of
I
like,
agree.
bringing in somebody for the bread pudding and then getting them to the slot machine, right?
No.
In the universe of housing, there is no slot machine.
No,
You just need the stuff.
and I agree with you. I'm just trying for the general public to understand that in so many cases, the media shines a spotlight on the little piece of fire that's in the corner of a wall and fills the whole screen with it, and when in fact the next day that's painted over and everything's fine.
Look, most of the people I know in the media are great, but I think
Thank goodness I'm not in the media, right?
right. I think the most important thing for people to know is we have to work to get the cost of housing down, and we need to be pushing every
that
lever
possible?
we can. Of course it is. Of course it is. Housing is one of those things that
Do you
exists.
do it by downsizing the size of houses? Because if you compare the size of houses today to the size of houses in the 50s, they were half the size.
For sure. Look, I think we all have to look at the expectations we have for housing, right? That's where verticality comes into place. That's where thinking about lot lines come into place. And that's where, frankly, we, as members of communities, right, need to look at new housing going in down the street, not as a burden to us, right? Not as a like, oh no, we're going to disrupt the character of the neighborhood. The character of the neighborhood is made up in the neighbors. And people having a place to live improves the character of a state.
I would agree. Let's take a break. We'll be back with more with the state treasurer after this time out.
The new year is bringing so much fun to Tamarack Casino with cash and free play drawings Thursdays and Saturdays, and $40,000 in grand finale giveaways Thursday, February 27th. Your good times are at Tamarack Casino.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org. Here on 7 at 7, we're bringing you the local headlines in just 7 minutes.
We've got you covered in the morning, evening, and for all breaking news, in between, and as it happens.
Life is busy, and we don't waste your time. Join us for local news now streaming on our YouTube page.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Zach Conine. He is the Nevada State Treasurer. I have to ask you a couple of political questions.
Okay.
The Attorney General has announced he is running for governor, and I was kind of curious as to, do you have aspirations for running for governor?
I don't think there's anyone in electoral politics in the state of Nevada who hasn't at some time thought about running for governor.
But are you thinking about it seriously?
I think about everything seriously. Right now, we are focused on the next 680 or so days, which is how much time I have left in the Treasury. We have, over the last couple of years, broken all sorts of records.
Yes, you have.
We made $400 million in investment returns last year. The first year I got here, the state made $12 million in investment returns. We have returned more unclaimed property to more people. We have, as we just talked about earlier, we have increased the state's ability to bond. We've had 3 credit rating upgrades. Our office works like a Swiss watch, and I need to make sure that when I leave, it continues to do so, right? The most important thing to do, I think, for any elected official is to do the job you are elected for until that job is done, right? And so we've got, about 2 years left on our second term. I can't run for treasurer again. And I think we will certainly spend time looking for ways that we can continue serving, if for no other reason than the juice has been worth the squeeze.
Okay, but the track record has been phenomenal. You are liked both by Democrats and Republicans.
That's nice. This feels like the back of my book. Don't let me stop you.
Do you have a desire that at the point where you feel that your department is running, as well as it can, that you could afford to take the time off to run for governor?
Look, I don't think that there is a lot of opportunity for us to take our eyes off the ball. We are managing $10 billion of the taxpayers' money.
So what's next?
What's next is let's get through the next 2 years. Let's do it extremely well. And I think Nevadans, if they see that I'm doing that work at the level that we are, because most people look, when I talk to Republicans, when I talk to Democrats, people disagree about the types of businesses government should be in, right? How big, how small, should we help in this front, should we not help in this front, right? Should we be on the field? No one wants government to be ineffective. And so we've spent the last 6 years creating the most effective chunk of government that I'd argue the state's ever seen, right? Now, does that make me want to bring that efficacy to other pieces of government? You bet it does. But I gotta make sure we land this plane first. My first responsibility, my only responsibility, is to the people in Nevada. After that, I'll have a conversation with my wife and my 3 kids and the 2 dogs, although one's 20, so hopefully the 2 dogs, and we'll figure out what we're gonna do next.
Now, you know very well that nobody watches this show. I mean, so we can say whatever we want to say, and it won't go anywhere. I mean, it's just the group of us in the room here.
Mm-hmm.
So could we see your name on a ballot in the next cycle?
I think it's very likely you'll see my name on the ballot in the next cycle. I think where you see my name on the ballot is a real question. And I think more importantly than that, Sam, anybody can put their name on the ballot, right? It's a couple of $100 in a signature. I got to earn it.
Well, I think you've been doing a pretty good job of earning it so far. Let's take another break. We'll be right back with the State Treasurer, Zach Conine, after this.
Welcome to the Winnemucca Big R.
Hi, I'm John Walker. Welcome to Big R Lovelock.
Hi, I'm Rich Martin. Welcome to Fallon Big R.
My name is Braden. Welcome to Big R Fernley.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to Big R Sparks.
A new year brings new ways to win big with the $150,000 flurry of cash giveaways at Carson Valley Inn. Thursday and Saturday prize drawings, including up to $5,000 in cash and up to $10,000 during the grand prize giveaways, only at the Carson Valley Inn.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the heat back on today. Call us today and we'll fix it today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why freeze for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your furnace fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Zach Conine. He's the Nevada State Treasurer. Ivanpah.
Yes.
Does that come up in discussions in your office at this point in time?
It does a little bit. I mean, that's more of a local government piece of business. Luckily, Rosemary Vasiliadis, who runs Harry Reid International Airport is amongst the best people that
Yes.
I've ever heard of in the space, right?
Yes.
And I got to tell you, I spend most of my time thinking about things that are problems or could be better, as opposed to things that are run by incredibly able people.
But is it not going to require state assistance as well as federal assistance in terms of
Certainly
finances?
federal assistance, maybe state assistance. And we're also looking at the area surrounding Ivanpah, right?
17,000 acres.
That's right. And so what can we do there from an inland port perspective? How can we make sure that that's being used as effectively as possible? Because a big piece of our economic development platform, right, is the ability for us to bring goods and services into the states and try to make them a little bit cheaper to the end users.
Okay, so that would be a part of your responsibility, would be the 17,000 acres and potentially an inland port there.
Look, anything where there's an idea in government where somebody needs a smart team, because I got the best team in all of government and the Treasury, anytime there's an opportunity for us to lean in, whether it's through the State Infrastructure Bank, whether it's through bonding, whether it's through anything, we're going to do it. And Ivanpah is a real big piece of the future of the state, so we'll help wherever we can.
Quick answer, does it surprise you that so few people are talking about Ivanpah? Because it's not, I mean, it seems like it's a long ways out, but it really isn't.
No, and I think one of the things that we really found out during the pandemic is that there is a desire for most Nevadans not to think about government as much as you and I think about government. And so I think where we've really been focused is on trying to make sure it works. Because when it works, people don't have to think about it. And when people don't have to think about it, that gives them more time to spend thinking about whatever it is they do care about. And that is the biggest gift that we can give to them as government, is the freedom to be able to live their lives the way they want to.
What a great way to end the show. I think I'm going to put that down as a quote. We'll put it on the back side of your book.
That's perfect. I'm going to need to have a fold out at this stage. But anyway, we'll
Thank you always for doing this.
Thanks
I
for
really
having us.
appreciate it.
Of course.
And we'll be right back.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
Each day, the Children's Advocacy Alliance partners with leaders, legislators, and families across Nevada to improve children's health, education, economic well-being, and safety. We recognize Nevada will be no better than the state of its children. Be a part of this change. Be a supporter of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. For more information, go to caanv.org.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday, trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day on various platforms, including television, radio, our website, audio and video podcasts, YouTube. You want to find the show, you can find it pretty darn easily. And we cover politics, business, health, and education. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next broadcast.